All right, everyone, we are back to offer more information about changing your mindset from being a writer to being an entrepreneur, running a business, having a business. You are a business owner, you manage a business. Completely different mindset from, oh, I'm a writer. So we're gonna look at some of the realistic aspects of being a writer in this series, and then we're going to delve into how to manage your business and ways of developing plans of action that will help you in creating an effective and efficient marketing plan. Okay, so I'd like to continue the conversation from our last video where I was speaking about it takes a lot of effort and energy and daily activities in order to build that audience and to nurture that audience for our product, which is in this case a book. Now, most authors, as I mentioned before, they're burning out of their finances, their promotional activities, their direct contacts within that honeymoon period, the 3 to 18 months after a book release. And so what we're trying to say is we need to make sure that we have a plan in place that takes us beyond that honeymoon period through to the life of that book. Now, the reality is as well that while online sales do account for a majority of book sales, there is no doubt about that at all. Studies are, however, showing us that direct sales are increasing too, and that only a small numbers of those are actually through traditional book retail outlets. Now, bookstores, they're still out there. They're few and far between. They're struggling along. They have a loyal clientele. We support them as much as we can. There's a small bookstore here in town. There's also a used bookstore in town. There are other retail outlets that also stock books besides the bookstore. So there's many places for us to go through and see if we can network or reach out or collaborate in one way or another and see if we can work together as businesses and get our product on their shelves and nurture that relationship with them. It's not just getting our product on their shelves, but now we have to drive the traffic through their doors. We want them to continue to have that product on their shelf. And in order to do that, they have to be selling it. So we need to drive traffic through their doors, looking for those books specifically, asking for the books when they're not on the shelf, when they're out of stock, so that they, oh yes, I gotta call, the Brummets and make sure they come in with their next load of books. So we want that kind of relationship happening. Now, this is just a few examples. There are a lot of examples out there. Okay, so say for instance, the Card and Stationery store here downtown locally in Creston, they are a department store. The top part of the building is strictly mainly for office supply, card, stationery, office supply. The other sections, there's a toy section, a craft section, a sewing section, they've got some sections. It's a department store. And yet they were willing to stock our cookbook up by their cash register. And they keep, 6 or 5 or 6 copies in stock on a regular basis. And then every week, 2 weeks or something, we send Dave down there and he checks to see how their supply is doing and we restock them. So we keep this relationship with them. But who would think that a card and stationery store would be stocking local author books, right? So you get a little bit creative. Think about outside of stores as well. Maybe you could set up a table outside of a soccer game, or maybe there's a jam going on, a music jam going on at a park locally, and you can maybe set up a table by your car in the parking lot near the entrance, or maybe you have a opportunity to rent a booth and you're going to attend an event and you're selling directly that way. Maybe you have an office where you have a flow of people coming in, or you work at a place, you have a day job and you're working at a place where there's a flow of people. Maybe you could arrange to have a rack of your books there available for people to purchase as well. There's a lot of different ways of looking at your direct sales and getting creative in that way. There's also a large number of alternative platforms for both readers and authors to consider looking at. I mean, there's online subscription books, and that also comes in the form of video. We have, you know, vlogs, we have flip books, we have audio books, we have all different kinds of genres and service providers out there helping us get our work out there. And another thing, by the way, contrary to popular thought, the age of a book actually doesn't usually play a role in how successful a book is. The marketing plan plays a role in how successful the book is. A book could be decades old, but if the content is still enjoyable or still relevant to today's readers, it's not defined by a date, you know, oh, it's out of date because this information is no longer relevant. It's rare that that happens. It's really rare when that happens. So we have to change our mindset, our mind limiting beliefs, and understand that some of these things that we tell ourselves aren't true. Now, what this also means is that marketing efforts for one book last the entire lifespan of that book. You know, whether it's released through new publishers or in various formats or new cover designs or new editions or repackaged as a box set, along with maybe all your other written work. I mean, there's so many alternatives for repackaging, remarketing, repositioning your product so that you get it out there to the audience time and time again in a fresh and new way over the lifetime of that book. And it might be 20 years where you take on one thing and, you know, a year later you do something else. And then 2 years later, you release it in a new format. You want to spread these things out so that they're doable and so that you're not flooding the market, but also so that you have something fresh to continue to market and promote. Now, we also need to keep in mind that there are literally 1,000 books published every single day in English, every single day minimum. And after the whole COVID shutdown and people coming back into life again, that book release publication number escalated to 3,000 books a day per day. It's slowing down a little bit now, but it's still pretty high. So the issue here that we're talking about in these last couple of videos is how we're going to stand out among these billions of books that have already been published and the thousands that are getting published every single day. How are we going to have our book, our name stand out like a purple snowflake in a snowstorm? How are we going to attract those few active readers and continue to do this repeatedly over and over and over for the life of our book? Now, studies show that we have to attract or intrigue that book lover 7 to 15 times before they're going to reach in their pocket and buy a book or put it in their wish list or to be read list. So we have some work ahead of us here. However, we can do it in a very doable, planned, systematic, step-by-step way so that we're not feeling overwhelmed, we're not overexhausted, you know, we're not spread too thin, we're not stressed right out. We do things slowly with a plan, step by step, one thing at a time, complete something really, really well, use it really, really well, nurture it, continue to nurture the work that you've done, and then take on your next task. Okay, so just step by step, one thing at a time, one step at a time. We're going to take you right back to the beginning and have you take off your writer's hat and put on your business hat in the next videos. So keep an eye out for that.